If you only buy a second book because you're really interested in food and wine pairings, this is the one to get. It's called, logically enough, What to Drink with What You Eat. But the beauty of it is that Andrew Dornenberg and Karen Page are culinarians. Their first book, the book they're best known for, is a book called Culinary Artistry. And almost every chef I know has the book. In fact, in the restaurant group I worked for in South Carolina, the chefs used the book so often that they wore out the bindings, and they would take it to a local printer, have the binding clipped off, have it 3-hole punched, and they would keep it in a notebook in the kitchen because they referred to it that often. And the beauty of culinary artistry, which is the beauty of this book, is that culinary artistry, you could look up any ingredient. You have cardamom, or you have 3 bratwurst, or you have London broil, or you have a piece of salmon and a piece of whitefish. You could look up whatever you have, and it would say, okay, with that, these seasonings work, these other elements or items would work with it. If you turn to the front part of the book, for example, and you say, oh my goodness, whatever I'm preparing tonight has caraway seeds, or it has caramel in it, then they will say, okay, start thinking about the following wines. Caramel, including sauces and desserts. Turned to this page accidentally, but it actually applies to our creme brulee and our port today. Caramel, including sauces and desserts. Consider port, tawny. Et voila, or whatever the equivalent is in Portuguese. If you don't want to worry about food and wine pairing ever again, only buy champagne. And Susan and I had this experience in a wonderful place, Georges Boyer, in this gorgeous restaurant, La Crée, in the Rhône area, the Champagne region of France. She took me there. It was a business trip. I understand she didn't fly me over to drink champagne. But I think I said early on that a lot of the international regions I visited were because I did a lot of international work in publishing, and I'd tack on before or after my business trip. So we were in the Champagne region, Appellation, for my birthday. She took me to Georges Boyer. You go in, and of course it's absolutely fabulous. You feel like you're in an old, French chateau, and all the servants are yours, and they're just dying to do your bidding, whatever that might be. Dressed formally to the teeth, of course. So we sit down. You would expect for the meal to open with a glass of champagne. It did, of course. And maybe some sort of amuse-bouche, a little bite that was just nice tasting to sort of get you thinking about food. So we look at the menus, decide what we want to eat, but there hasn't been a wine list offered. You know where this is going now. Indeed. But I made the mistake of saying, monsieur, the wine card, please. I could have hit him. He would have looked less. Monsieur, you are in Champagne region. You will have champagne. I felt about an inch high, but at that time I didn't have all the credentials, just the interest in wine. Sometimes you learn the hard way. And sure enough, every single course was champagne. And the way they pull it off is that the champagnes got older and richer. The bigger the sauces and the protein, the substance of the course itself. This is the most controversial pairing of the bunch. In theory, according to wine science, you should not like chocolate and red wine. The bitterness of the chocolate and the tannins in the red wine should intensify each other, and those are not, that was not elegant, those are not sensations that many people like. But, yeah, I was going to say, There's a whole class, and indeed a city, perhaps an entire country of people who say that's dead wrong. There is nothing better than red wine and chocolate.
I agree.
Now, you will get some disagreement about what kind of chocolate. Mickey Bonner, for example, likes milk chocolate with red wine. I can't do that because I don't like milk chocolate. I deliberately chose, I don't think I have one of the unwrapped bars, 85% chocolate solids. This is almost, short of the 99 or whatever, this is almost as bitter as I could make it. And my hope was that the bitterness with the tannins would affect somebody the way it affected you. And that's the principle, but it doesn't affect everybody that way. And you find you can change it by changing wines and changing chocolates. Wayne would contend unless the wine is sweeter than the dessert, you've made a bad pairing. You found that the port with the not so sweet chocolate, that worked.
Actually, the difference was phenomenal.
Yeah. And this is exactly what we're looking for when we experiment with food and wine pairings. It has to be caught, not taught. That old saying that we've heard often enough, it's almost trite. You just have to experiment and see what works for your palate and then go from there. So we found no on tannic and bitter. We found yes on sweet and sweeter.